what are your qualifications, or really having any economical knowledge at all, when likely the vast majority of the students here know more than you about economics as a whole?
Who's Milton Friedman?
I have no idea.
Who is Ludwig von Mises?
These are all probably economists. You're a potential white supremacist. I'm not going to argue your lived experience. I'm not going to know.
Charlie Kirk faces off with an arrogant student who wants to use ad hominem rather than substance. If you engage on social media at all, you will know that this is the most commonly used logical fallacy on the internet. I'll show you how to avoid falling into the trap of ad hominem attacks, but more importantly, where the roots of this poisonous tree really comes from. It might not surprise you, but it's worth all of our time. We'll talk about that and more today on Indie Thinker. Welcome to the show. My name is Reed Uberman. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out today's show sponsor, CMG Home Loans. If you're looking to purchase or refinance a home, you need to check out our friends over at cmghomeloans.com. And when you do so, let them know that Indie Thinker sent you. Now, one of the most common tactics online to use against somebody is ad hominem today. You can see it all over the comments section wherever you go. Very rarely do you actually see people engaging in the comments section substantively with any argument that they may be interacting with. I think to myself something similar to this. Not that I have ever experienced this, but if I were to lay out Anselm's ontological argument, Aquinas' 5 ways, and the cosmological argument, the unmoved mover, and the first cause, and why it's necessary to have a first cause or else you have an infinite regress, or to talk to you about Kant's moral argument for the existence of God. If I were to give any of those arguments as robustly as I possibly could, it's a sure bet that the vast majority of people who engage with that, who are not Christians, are going to say something to the effect of, "You're an idiot for believing in a sky fairy." Now, that does not engage with any of the arguments that I just made that actually have a lot of intellectual merit to them. And if they didn't, then you could argue with them substantively. But ad hominem rather goes for the personal attack, rather to engage in the substance. And the reason this is so important is that a people who can no longer engage in substance are easy prey to be manipulated. Not only is it important for the person who is arguing to be able to avoid that kind of personal attack, to push the conversation towards something of substance, but it's also important for the person who would likely engage in ad hominem to grow up and to realize that you can be easily deceived if you cannot engage substantively in conversation with another person. Now, this is probably best illustrated and most cynically illustrated by something the Democrats have started to do lately. They have started to trot out Project 2025 to their voter base. And the reason they have done so is that Project 2025 is a 900-page document that they are 100% sure that none of their electorate is ever going to read. Rather, they can just use the title, hold it over people's heads, and then scare them into voting for them. This was on full display when Don Lemon went around the DNC and then asked voters about Project 2025, and here's the results that video yielded.
Do you think people know enough about Project 2025?
Project 2025 is relatively unknown. I think it's gotten a lot of buzz recently, but I think a lot of people don't want to read 900 pages of anything, so the really long format that the Heritage Foundation has put it in makes it so that a lot of people don't want to read about it.
We've been talking to people about Project 2025.
Yeah.
Do you think people know how serious that is?
No. It's a comprehensive document that is quite lengthy. And the reality is that most people, won't really take the time to be able to read it.
What do you want people to know about it?
That it is everything that is against America. It is a blueprint for destroying our country. We have the opportunity to do something to make sure that this document never sees the light of day in our White House. I don't see me or you being included in that 25 in a positive way. The Trump plan has nothing that is beneficial for black men, but to put us back where we came from many, many years ago.
We got to go and vote. The excitement's great, but this excitement will mean nothing if we don't win. So let's just keep the momentum going and then go and vote.
I would love for you guys to go to project2025.com and learn a little bit more about Trump's absolutely radical agenda.
Now, shortly after this video, Don Lemon took it down because he holds up a Project 2025 card, which was actually a card that Matt Walsh and some of his guys had been handing out to try to troll the DNC, and it was actually a portal to go buy tickets for Am I Racist? Now, I love the troll, and I think it's hilarious that these people fall for these kind of things, but more importantly, what we saw in that video is not just that Don Lemon didn't check out the website that he was advertising in that video, but more importantly, we saw Don Lemon talk to a number of people who didn't give you a single substantive answer as to what Project 2025 is. The closest we got there was one dude who said, well, of course, it's going to bring you into like a pre-Jim Crow era because Project 2025 is all about how much Republicans hate black people or some such nonsense like that. It's astounding that that many people could speak as though they were an authority on something that they most likely have never read. But here's the point. Democrats bet on the ignorance of their voter base. And the strange thing is that their voter base is the most educated group of people in America. So how is it that they are betting on ignorance when these people are so educated? I think we see this on full display in a conversation that Charlie Kirk has with a college student who wants to quickly attack Charlie because he doesn't have the same level of education as this student does. You can see how Charlie handles that. I think it's worth the conversation, so let's check it out.
You dropped out of college, and your highest...
Community college.
Sorry, your Harper College experience, I apologize.
barely was smart enough to make it through community college.
Okay, so...
Barely
and
made it through high school,
your
too.
highest degree level is an honorary doctorate degree from Liberty University.
No, that's true. I do have an honorary PhD.
Yeah, so essentially, what are your qualifications for arguing that college is a scam, or really having any economical knowledge at all, when likely the vast majority of the students here know more than you about economics as a whole?
Okay, so, no, hold on. It's okay, guys. It's okay. Who's Milton Friedman?
Who's Milton Friedman? I have no idea, and it's not important to this conversation.
Who is Ludwig von Mises?
These are all probably economists, and they're the same
Who
thing.
is John Maynard Keynes?
Okay, obviously I know who Keynes is.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
He's the most famous economist of all time.
You don't know Milton Friedman?
I mean, that's an economist.
Okay, how about Murray Rothbard?
That's another economist.
F.A. Hayek?
I don't know who that is.
Well, then you just came here and insulted my intelligence. You're right, I barely made it through community college because I was too busy, I don't know, starting a national youth movement with hundreds of thousands of members.
Hey, hold on, though. Hold on.
Employing hundreds of people, raising hundreds of millions of dollars,
yes,
having a top 10 most popular podcast,
sure,
and reaching tens of millions of people online every day.
Sure,
but hold on.
But you're also calling all of your
qualifications?
Constituents idiots by
I've
saying
never
they participate in a scam. Their
Hold on a
shirts
second.
right there.
I'm
College
calling
is a
the
scam.
institution a scam. So you asked, what are my qualifications? I'm a job creator, entrepreneur, autodidact. Do you know what that word means?
Self-taught.
Yeah, self-taught. You know, you should probably learn that word if you're going to come up and insult other people's intelligence.
Now, what you just saw right there is a perfect example of ad hominem attack, and it's hard to overstate just how indicative of our present culture what you just saw truly is. This is a dime a dozen on social media, where an individual will come up and essentially give you an appeal to authority and just say, well, hey, I went to college, you didn't go to college, so you must be totally stupid. And then Charlie goes on to absolutely school this guy because he doesn't even know any famous economist whatsoever. And this isn't even kind of like this thing where you think Charlie is just randomly picking people. These are like mainstream economists, and the guy doesn't even know who Milton Friedman is. So all that to say this, that the appeal to authority is so ubiquitous today, and we have to ask ourselves, where does this come from? Well, I think we're looking at it right in front of us. I think it comes from colleges. I think college has given people this false impression of authority and false impression of lettered, literacy, that it is creating a generation of dumb people who really don't understand how dumb they are. I think we all know that college is what college is. It is what you put into it, and most people put into it the opportunity to get away from their parents, go and drink and cheat on tests. So just because you went to college means absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, just because you have a degree doesn't mean much more than that. Listen, we're living at an age where more books are available to us in multiplied degrees, like 10 times the number of books are available to us with the flick of a finger than were in the sum total of the Library of Alexandria. But we are presently getting dumber and dumber in the present. I'll get into this a little bit deeper in a moment. But I think this is almost at face value true, that we understand, hopefully if we're paying attention or we know anything about history, that people of the past were way more well-read and way more educated than we are today. Perhaps maybe the way for me to best express this is to give you an argument. If we were living in ancient Athens, the time of, let's just say, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, any of those guys, and social media existed, what do you think the posts would look like during that time? Now, I don't know for sure. Might have something to do with servant boys, and we need to get away from that as quickly as we possibly can. But all I'm saying is that there was a robust intellectual dialogue going on at the time that seems pretty foreign to us today. Whereas I can tell you the most popular posts on social media to date, first and foremost, is the picture of this egg. So this brown farm fresh egg is the most liked post on Instagram in the history of Instagram. Prior to that, I bet you can't guess what was the second most liked post in the history of Instagram. And if you guessed Kylie Jenner's butt, you would be 100% correct. So I think it's pretty easy for us to see that we have a pretty dumbed down society in the present, and I can't help but put that at the feet of colleges and universities. George Orwell said this about colleges. He says that there are just some ideas that are so dumb that they can only come from the most educated people. Now, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but essentially he's saying this, that good thinking goes to die at colleges and universities, unfortunately, in the present. And I think he's right about this. Now, as a Christian, I experience this all the time when it comes to biblical criticism. So I'm told very often that sheep herders in the ancient past who were so dumb writing down these stories for us not only couldn't have remembered them to write them down faithfully, but they were so uneducated and illiterate that all these stories are just completely made up. I don't know if you know this, but the average disciple back then, as unlettered and dumb as they were, knew 3 languages, and by the time of their bar mitzvah, a young Jewish boy would have had to memorize large tomes of scripture. Some people even say that they would have had to memorize the whole Torah. Now, I couldn't confirm that irrefutably beyond a shadow of a doubt, but let's just say that they had to memorize way more than the average college student ever did.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
All that to say this, I think the current college system is creating a group of people who have the veneer of intelligence because they have degrees, but not the true lettered nature of intelligence, not the true kind of well-read nature that you need to have to truly be an intellectual. And I do lay that at the feet of the college and university system in the present. But also, I think it's not just the idea of the veneer of authority that comes with a degree. I think there's something else deep down in the roots of the college and university system that is creating this sense of ignorance and creating this desire for ad hominem attack because we cannot engage in substance. I'll show you one more clip because I think that this kind of illustrates well that there's something more going on at the academy that is creating this kind of ignorance.
And let me just ask again, what did I say that was wrong? I said that under the generally agreed upon definition of communism and socialism, which are interchangeable terms, one is a more harsh degree of the other, is that the elimination of the family, the elimination of private property, and the deprivation of basic human rights such as right to speech, right to assembly, and right to worship. How is that not a good definition of communism or socialism?
That explains
the
fascism better.
Well, but in the Communist Manifesto, Marx said, quote, "We are here to destroy the nuclear family and eradicate the family because it was the original oppressive, tyrannical structure." He said religion is the opiate of the masses and that private property must be eradicated. I have just now documented all 3 of those with evidence back to original source documents. And then in practice, Russia did all those 3 things when they were the Soviet Union. So where am I wrong?
But then at the same time, if you claim that those are all negative things, then why do you practice certain things in the doctrines that you just stated?
Well, I'm not trying to take people's stuff away. I want people to have bigger families, and I want churches to remain open.
Yeah, but the thing is your biggest point that everyone here is for is that you're a potential white supremacist. So.
What evidence do you have that I'm a racist?
I was just literally watching a video of you talking about whiteness as a whole, talking about whiteness as a concept, okay? And you were trying to explain how white privilege doesn't exist.
Correct, it doesn't.
You are a white man. How do you know?
Because I have eyes.
Because you have eyes. That's not a description.
Reason. So what can a black person do that I can't do in America? Or
What can a
vice
black
versa?
person do?
What can I
So,
do a black person can't do, I should
Let's
say.
think of some history right here. Let's go
No,
through the history of redlining.
I don't need a history. I don't need
Yes,
listen.
no,
you're talking about
you
white
do
privilege.
need a history lining. Clearly, you need a history
I know your
lesson.
talking points better than you do, and I've read all the literature that you have. I've probably forgotten more about the literature.
History affects the present day as well, and you know that's true. If you went to college, you would know.
Well, hold on a second, but let me.
So then why are you wearing the college of the scam shirt? Drop out.
Well, because you could.
So it's because you don't believe your own beliefs, and that's what I'm saying.
Well, you can admit something's a scam and still get through it. That's why he's wearing it. Okay.
Why?
You could feel like you're getting ripped off by an airline
But
and still
anyways,
want to get to
that's
New York.
not what we're talking
okay?
about anymore.
Like you're like, I'm getting ripped off by a $1,000 ticket, but you still get on the airplane. Like, it doesn't make you a hypocrite. It means that the people are ripping you off, and a lot of you are getting ripped off. But no. So as far as white privilege, just without the history lesson of Jim Crow, segregation, imperialism, colonialism, slavery, all the stuff that I know that you're going to say, but just concretely in America today, what can a white person do that a black person can't do?
Black applicants to jobs are 50% less likely to get jobs if they have a black-sounding name.
That's not even close to being true. That's not even close to being true.
That is a literal.
In fact, it's the opposite.
I'm not going to argue your lived experience. I'm not going to. No.
See, now you have to listen to him under your rules because a black person is going to say you're wrong.
I am. He can say I'm wrong. I know.
Come on up to the mic.
I know. I read your.
My name's Keemon Dixon. I have a really black name. Please tell me how 50% of my internships have been denied when I've worked for Senator Mike Lee, Mayor Trent Sachs, Speaker Mike Schultz.
Hold on.
I worked for a Congressman, Burgess Owens. I've actually worked on his campaign. I've worked on the campaigns of John Huntsman Jr. Please tell me how my black experience and my black name has not given me. Go ahead.
So right there in one clip, you have the epitome of the ad hominem. When all else fails and you have no leg to stand on, call your opponent a white supremacist. I mean, that is a surefire winner. I have no doubt that this student is actually sincere, that he has convinced himself that Charlie Kirk basically parades around in white pajamas with pointy hats on a regular basis, and it's not his own flawed logic. That's the problem. And the Academy is pumping out fools with degrees like this all the time and dumbing down society. If I were to put it another way, I'd say this. For many, the Academy has become a substitute for the love of learning. But this, I think, also might verge on giving the Academy too much credit, because it almost suggests that they accidented their way into producing these kind of kids who have the flawed fallacy of credentialism and just lean on that paper diploma as though that equals intelligence. I think there's something underneath all of that that's much more important, that's leading to the dumbing down of society, the rise of ad hominem. For proof of this agenda, you should notice that there's only two kinds of people in society who use this white supremacy attack line. That would be academicians and Democrats. What does the modern left and the Academy have in common other than basically they're interbreeding with one another? Both are dogmatically anti-dogmatic, or in other words, anti-religious. The Democratic Party is statistically the most educated side of the aisle and the least religious group, according to Gallup. They said this: today, 85% of white evangelical voters identify with or lean toward the GOP, and just 14% align with the Democrats. Now, there's obviously a lot of other numbers, like the number of black evangelical voters, but that has more to do with culture than an actual religious worldview at the center of the party. And you can look at the stats yourself. Just generally speaking, largely, Republicans lean Christian, while Democrats largely lean secular at a much higher rate. Now, you may be asking, what does this prove? Well, I think just this. It isn't just the Academy making us dumber. It's the ideas that are promoted in the Academy and in society and largely in the left today that is making us dumber. And that idea that's being promoted is militant secularism. It will come as no surprise that the place for you to hear the inanest, most thoughtless attacks on Christianity is in the Academy. It is there where you will still hear the antiquated idea that science has disproven God. Not only has modern science brought us more evidence to the contrary, but it is also constantly bringing us closer and closer to God all the time. Again, this antiquated belief that science has disproven God is factually untrue, and to put it lightly and more directly, probably stems straight from...
Could it be Satan?
So for those of you who would disagree, just allow me to clear the air. The real issue making conversation more difficult, increasing polarization, is the stupid idea of secularism. I know that sounds like I doubled down, but again, hear me out. There's a couple of reasons why secularism is hollowing out our intellect and our spirits in the present. When we have no concept of the hallowed, we become hollow people. Here's why. First of all, secularism fundamentally disregards a higher mind. Now, there's a great quote that comes to mind here. Albert Einstein said this: "The incomprehensible thing about the universe is its comprehensibility." In other words, when he looks out at the universe and looks at science and how comprehensible it is, it makes it odd that we believe that there isn't a divine design in all of it, because the fact that it is comprehensible should lead us to an understanding that something is going on there. And this is the idea that Christians have been promoting for hundreds of years. In fact, there wouldn't be no such thing as the academy, certainly Ivy League institutions in America, which were largely founded by Christians, and there would be no real progress in terms of science, cosmology, medical science, and so much more if it weren't for Christians. And why? C.S. Lewis gives us the answer. That men believed to see law in nature because they believed in a lawgiver. So in other words, Christians believed that if they sought, that they would find that out there in the cosmos, out there in the natural world, if they began to discover, based upon their desire to see God in the natural world, that they would find something because there was an intelligent being that created it all. So in other words, all I'm saying is this, is that when you limit the possibility for a divine mind outside of yourself and intelligence outside of humanity, it actually is antithetical to scientific discovery. It is Christians who have been largely responsible for the scientific discoveries, namely in the West. Now, you might claim that that's simply a genetic fallacy. That's all we had to choose from was Christians in the past because Christians dominated the world. But I think that's too dismissive. The reality is that you have a reason to believe that there might be a higher intelligence, and then therefore it sends you on a journey of discovery to figure out what that intelligence is. But you don't get that from secularism. Now, also, secularism has this problem. It provides no insight into the most important questions of our times. Dawkins said it well. The universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect. If there is, at bottom, no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. Now, you can say he's just talking about the universe there, but if from the fundamental building blocks of the universe to the existence of mankind, there is absolutely no purpose and no meaning to any of it. We're just meatballs wandering in space. We're just random accidents. If that's true, then there is no meaning. And then we can posit that atheism ultimately doesn't have anything to say on the most important subjects of life. Why am I here? Do I have a purpose? What is existence really all about? Is there meaning to life? There is no rational basis within the atheistic or secular worldview to answer any of those questions. Now, perhaps one more thing. Christianity becomes incredible in the secular worldview, and atheism unfalsifiable. In other words, you try to raise the bar as high as you can for Christianity to prove itself true, and then when we say, okay, well, what would it take for you atheists to believe that Jesus is who he says he is and that God exists? Well, it would take God coming down himself and showing himself, revealing himself to me, and then even then, I'm not sure that wouldn't be something I ate for dinner last night, that I wouldn't have some kind of delusion, but it would take that kind of thing. It would take God revealing himself to me personally. Now, here's the problem with that. Almost every single secularist, and by virtue of the name secular, every single one of them denies the existence of miracles. So essentially what the atheist says, what the secularist says, is that I will not believe in God under any circumstance, because the one thing that I say I do not believe in beyond a shadow of a doubt is miracles, and that's the only thing that I will allow to push me into the realm of theism. So you can see the problem there. You've made atheism totally unfalsifiable. You're willing to push aside all the evidence for the existence of God. The only thing that you'll accept is the one thing you say that you will never believe in. And there's one last thing to say about this. The repercussions of secularism, I think, are right in front of our face. We are not becoming a less religious people as we turn away from Christianity and the church and turn toward more secular versions of reality. We are simply becoming more pagan. G.K. Chesterton said this: there are two ways of getting home, and one of them is to stay there, the other is to walk around the whole world till we come back to the same place. G.K. Chesterton essentially is saying this, is that we can accept the reality of Christianity staring us in the face, developing the West and doing so much to create the world in which we live in now, or we can keep on rehearsing our past over and over and over again until we finally come to the realization that Christianity is the worldview that kind of tops them all. And I think we are doing this in the present. What would you call the idea that if you sacrifice your baby, it will somehow magically produce a brighter future for you in the present, other than a pagan sacrifice? And what would you call the idea that we can magically change our gender because of a feeling we have through the development of modern science? All of this is nothing less than a rehashing of old pagan ideology that is just coming in different iterations, but it's the same old thing. So if America has one overarching idiot superstition, it would be this: you're stupid if you're a Christian. That statement is so idiotic it is hard to summarize, but I'll try. There is no man as stupid as a stupid man who thinks he is not stupid. Maybe a little lesson in humility from the world's largest religion can help us with that. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and go with God.